They did all the scans and said, okay, you need emergency surgery.
Yeah, and I mean, it was to the point they were like, there's no choice. You're not going to be able to walk if this goes on any further.
When they told you, okay, this is Cauda Equina Syndrome that you've got, what was your reaction?
What is that? What does that mean? Permanent nerve damage. I still walk with a limp on my right leg, but there are people who can't walk. Being at, a very low place mentally, and then really just deciding like, I'm not taking this anymore. I can't do this anymore. I'm turning this around.
Welcome to the Reclaim Project podcast. In this episode, we discuss a rare but serious neurological condition known as Cauda Equina Syndrome, which affects a bundle of nerve roots at the base of the spinal cord. We extend a warm welcome to Kathryn, who joins us all the way from Dallas, Texas, to share her experiences with the condition. Kathryn also shares the personal transformation she undertook since her diagnosis, transmuting adversity and pain into empowerment and wisdom.
So you've had it was discomfort in your right glute for a few days. You've flown to Dallas, you've flown to Seattle. On your way back, that's when it started getting really bad. And you still hadn't,
Yes.
And then you still didn't go to ER for a few days after that until it got worse. Like you said, your bladder control wasn't there. You couldn't go to the toilet.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then, so we'll skip forward. They did all the scans and said, okay, you need emergency surgery, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, it was to the point they were like, there's no choice. I'm like, back surgery, that sounds off. They were like, I don't think you understand.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to be able to walk if this goes on any further.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay, let's do the surgery.
Gosh. And you said there was a herniated disc, L5S1?
L5S1. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that was October 2019. So we're a couple of months apart because mine was July of 2020.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and same thing as you. It was, I wouldn't say it was the right glute. It was more the right hip, like the glute med, just behind the right hip bone. And it was sore for maybe about a week. But I was still training. I was doing, heavy compound weights, and I was still like you. Go to the physio. I didn't go to the chiropractor. I went to physio, had some dry needling, had deep tissue massage to try and get rid of it, and it wouldn't ease up. We went out to dinner. I went out to dinner with a group of friends of mine because that was us coming out of our first COVID lockdown. So we had a 3-month lockdown. So my friend said, okay, let's go out and celebrate being let out again. So we did that. And we had a great night out. We had and about 10:30 that evening, I called an Uber home. And as soon as I sit down, that saddle anesthesia kicked in. And I just thought, what the hell is this? I still didn't go to the ER. Like I stayed with it for a few days thinking it will go away, So it's stubbornness on my part as well. And it's when that bladder control kicked in for me as well, that's when I drove myself to the ER. Well, I did it twice. I went there once. The first time I went there in the morning. I think I'd waited for about 45 minutes and thought, okay, this is too long. I'll just go home, which I did. I stayed, I put up with it for another night and it got worse and went back the following morning. And again, the pain levels, like you, was up there. It was definitely a 10 out of 10. Like, it was horrendous. Then, they catheterized me to relieve my bladder and did the scans and went for surgery that night. So mine was 2 discs, so it was L4, L5S1. So your surgery, I think it was the same as mine. So it was a laminectomy and discectomy.
Yep.
Yeah. With that, I stayed in hospital. It was a few weeks, actually, because I kept failing the sensory tests that they do.
Oh, wow.
So they still weren't sure if I'd be able to walk if I'd pushed it too far, especially with the heavy weights that I was doing prior to that. They thought I could have I could have damaged it to the point where I was going to be paraplegic. But then I started getting some sensation in my left foot. But the process from there, the rehab process from that point on was painful, it was lengthy, it was frustrating. and then to deal with the mental side of it as well, like what has just happened to my body. Is that what you found?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. The physical was one thing, the mental was like a whole nother. I mean, and then just both of them at the same time and trying to figure out, what is going on? What does the future look like? How do I get through this moment? I mean, it was crazy. And I remember it so clearly. It's,
Yeah.
gosh, almost 5 years. It'll be 5 years in October. And I remember it so clearly, every part of it.
When they told you, okay, this is Cauda Equina Syndrome that you've got, what was your reaction to that? For me, it was, I didn't know how to accept that. Like, I didn't know what it was,
That
so I
was
didn't know
my
how
first
to
time.
react.
What is that? What does that mean? And
Yeah.
that's what I'm like, I don't understand. And it wasn't until after the surgery, and I had to ask them again. I'm like, what was that you said I have? And then I started researching it, and I was like, oh my God, like, what is this? This is scary, And I didn't realize really until I had joined the Facebook support group how much worse it could have been.
Yeah.
I'm consider myself one of the lucky ones.
Same, yeah.
It could have been so much worse.
Yeah.
And, I have the permanent nerve damage. I still walk with a limp on my right leg, even though it's much less noticeable. But there are people who can't walk, and there are people who are in much, much worse shape than I am. And so, I consider myself lucky.
Yeah, and that's the thing with this is there's such a broad spectrum, and I think I'd probably be sitting, I wouldn't say in the middle, to the better side of the scale, considering what, like you said, what other people are still going through, and they're 10, 20, even 30 years post-op.
Right.
Some still in wheelchairs and, having bladder and bowel control issues decades after the operation, some having gone through multiple operations. But yeah, I was completely confused as to how to accept this news because I didn't know what it was. And the way it was delivered to me was that, the message I got was, okay, it was not that serious. And it's not. And it's until I researched it and joined this Facebook group that I thought, geez, okay, I'm saddled with something big. My mindset at that time was defeatist. Like I felt defeated initially because I thought, okay, is this it? Does it get better? If there's hope, how much hope? Or am I just trying to kid myself? But I went to a very, very good physio. I was his very first CES client. He hadn't dealt with Cauda Equina at all, but he did so much research into it that the program that he put me on really set me on the right path. And the more I started to use my body, the more confident I got, and the mental confidence I got from that was invaluable.
Yeah.
That's when I said, okay, there's something for me to work with here. So it's up to me now to put the foot down on the accelerator and just push this as hard as I can. And that's the mindset I took. And I am where I am today. I'm back in the gym doing all the things, and I'm very careful for my body now. I think it's fair to say I was quite reckless. All growing up, I used to play rugby. I really didn't have any respect for my body, to be fair. And then with the weight training as well, I at one stage I was lifting weights that I had no business lifting. It was all ego lifting at that point. So
yeah, absolutely. When you were just describing that just now, I can relate so perfectly. I can say I am in the best shape and best health of my life at 37. And it's a huge part of that, and it's kind of going through the journey and being at, a very low place mentally and physically, and then really just deciding like, I'm not taking this anymore. I can't do this anymore. The cycle I'm going through, the negative mindset, I lost self-confidence, and I'm like, I'm turning this around. And I have. I mean, I have never felt better in my life, and that's I'm the oldest I've ever been. Obviously, I feel better. I feel better now than I did in my 20s and my early 30s before Cauda Equina. I appreciate my body so much.
Absolutely, I would say that my mindset shift was basically, as you just pointed out, that I needed to take the reins because that's when I realized nobody's going to fix this for me. There's a chance that I might get better, but the onus is on me. And granted, it's not easy for the guys that are worse off than you and I.
Right.
Because just reading all the posts, they have all this peripheral stuff, all these other things that come along with it. So it's the mindset shift for them, to be fair, is challenging, I would say.
Absolutely.
I mean, you made some big changes as well.
I changed my whole life around. I mean, I literally transformed who I am. I'm still who I am at the core. So I had noticed when you said, yours happened kind of, and I say at the end of COVID, but COVID went on for a really long time. So it was really more kind of in the middle of it, I guess towards the end of lockdown, but in the middle of COVID, whereas mine was before. And so I was just thinking when you said that, we were kind of on different sides of that, but both were at a really hard time. So yeah, mine was October 2019. And I was, I kind of mentioned this to you. And so I lost my self-confidence. I wasn't able to work out. I wasn't able to exercise, something that I had been used to doing so much. And then going into, 2020, and I started drinking a lot. I had always been a drinker, but it was just socially accepted. It was something that was just a part of life. I was, I have the same job now that I've been with the same company for 11 years. So, I was successful and, I owned my own home. I was doing, great things, but I was drinking a lot. And people, it's just such a common part of society. It's not like I was doing hard drugs. That's something that would be frowned upon. I was just drinking, just a normal thing, but I was drinking a lot. And it was a problem, and I didn't realize it at the time because, like I said, I was successful. I had a great job. I was, doing great things. But going into COVID and, we all started working from home, and I was really close with my coworkers, and working from home, which I love to do now, is not something I liked at the time, And then I was still trying to deal with, how to move forward from this Cauda Equina diagnosis. My body is still feeling completely crazy. I'm still not able to work out and get the regular exercise. I'm going through physical therapy. And then, COVID happens and I started drinking more than ever. And I had really gotten into a miserable place where I didn't even realize it at the time. It wasn't until, kind of the tail end of it. And I became a really negative person. And it was, so the beginning of the summer, the COVID summer 2020, my boyfriend and I broke up. I mean, we were just, neither one of us were in a good place, honestly. I think COVID did that to a lot of people, but we were, if you're not happy with yourself, you can't be happy with somebody else. And so he and I broke up, and then I just, I kind of spiraled, and the drinking was really just, it reached its all-time high. And it was I was drinking way too much and way too often. Still, working my job, paying my bills, saving money, doing, these great things. But it's really becoming a problem. And so it wasn't until August, and I realized, this is a huge problem. I'm no longer happy. I'm not having fun. Before, at least I was having fun going out with my friends, and I'm like, I'm not having fun. I'm not happy with who I am. I'm not happy with this person I'm becoming. And it was like, I just was done. I couldn't take it anymore. I was sick of myself. I was sick and tired of myself. And I was like, I need to take control of this. I feel like I really let my circumstances take control of me. And I just kind of fell into this downward spiral. And I had enough. And it was August 2020. And I was just like, I'm done. And I quit drinking. It was this constant cycle of just, and it was making me feel depressed. It was making me feel bad physically, mentally, emotionally. And I'd gone out every day for a week straight. Things are back open after COVID. And so I'm going out and I'm having a great time. And I just felt miserable. I felt awful. It was the Sunday after a week long of partying, going out with friends. And I was like, I just can't take this anymore. I felt like I was having this internal breakdown a little bit. And I hadn't dealt with the grief I was feeling from the loss of my relationship. And even though it ended and we weren't, even happy towards the end, but I was still, grieving that relationship, but I wasn't, because I was just masking it with the alcohol. And so then I allowed myself to really feel, kind of the heartbreak and the loss that I had felt, and really work through those emotions. I bought myself a bicycle. That was the best thing I could have done. I started, by this point, my doctor had approved it, he's like, yeah, go ride your bike as long as you're feeling like it. And I would ride miles and miles. And I started just speaking positive things to myself, affirmations. And I would ride my bike with I'd have my helmet on, but I could feel the wind hitting me in the face, and it felt that fresh air. And I would just repeat these mantras and affirmations to myself, and I would just get back and I'd feel so good. And I was like, that's the best feeling. And I just started doing little things like that. I started reading so many books. I've always been a book nerd, but I started reading a lot of self-help books, and not just, my drama and murder mysteries like I had read before, but really, feeding my mind things that would help me get, to the place I wanted to be. And really, I started meditating. I started working out with a personal trainer and really trying to get, my body back as well. So I was doing just everything I could to basically just completely change the person I had become that I was no longer happy with. And it was hard. It was hard, but it was necessary.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a lot of shadow work that you're taking on there because, you're still in physical therapy trying to rehab your body into getting as strong as it can be, while you're also adopting another healthier lifestyle. So with the bike riding, for example, I mean, how did that go? Did you have full use of your legs, or was there still...
I did. I did. And that was one thing I could do and do really well, because I still couldn't walk long distances without my right leg would just get so tired, because it's that lift off for me. It's like the push off on my right leg. And it's so challenging. And now I can walk. I mean, there are some days, I go for at least 1-2 mile walk every single day, and sometimes 2. And now I could just walk and walk and walk. And, at the end of the day, it's going to be tired and it's going to be worn out. But at that point, I still couldn't do that. So riding the bike was actually really, really, really good for me. And I could pedal without just getting, really tired in that right ankle.
And you didn't, obviously, it's low impact, so you didn't aggravate your lower back at all.
Right.
I never thought of that. I never thought about riding a bike because I just kept on with the walking and swimming. And I'm a terrible swimmer.
I did a lot of swimming too.
And I'm terrible. I swim like a brick. Like when they said, I'm terrible. So when they said, okay, let's incorporate some swimming into your rehab, I thought, can't we think of something else? But it was so good for me because, I went out, I don't know what you call them over there. I know I call them the wrong thing here, the flippers, the fins.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I started with them because I just couldn't propel myself. I was all upper body thrashing, was very untidy, didn't look good at all. But I got there. But swimming, I did a lot of. But the walking, so I had a limit. Like I would say a 10-meter limit to start with before I'd completely drop off, and then went to 100 meters, then 500 meters, then a kilometre. I don't know what that is in miles. And now I would say I still have a limit. Like it's about a 10K limit, about a 10 kilometre limit. And I don't have any pain when I go beyond that limit. I just, my legs and my feet especially, that foot drop, that plodding along. And it's not, I can't say it's one leg is worse than the other. They're pretty much the same. And I could feel them labouring. The thing that really helped me during my rehab, get my strength back in my legs, was EMS, electromuscular stimulation. So it's basically a 20-minute workout with these electrodes strapped to your body. It just sends a current through your muscles and, targets those deep muscle fibers. Because, as you know, I couldn't feel my legs activate really. But with the EMS, that really turned that around. Again, gave me that confidence to keep walking. The other thing I've done as well is I bought these air compression sleeves, leg sleeves, and they're great for circulation. I used to use it every single day, but I probably use it maybe, once every 2-3 months now. But I think those two things really helped me get the sensation back in my legs. I don't know if you have full sensation back, but beforehand, if I touched my legs, I couldn't feel them at all. Or I could, but it'd be very dull.
Yeah. So that's, I do for the most part down the back of my right leg. It's just like, if I run a finger down there, it's just kind of like a little prickly feeling.
Yeah, it's a weird feeling.
From my glute all the way down to my foot, and like the bottom of my right foot, I mean, it's just like, there's no feeling there.
It's no feeling,
but I can walk, I can walk great, but it's just like,
and that's what people can't reconcile, because they're like, hang on, you've got all these issues. How can you walk? You seem so normal. And you're trying to explain to people, okay, this is what's happening. They just don't get it. It's like, okay, if you've got nerve damage, you shouldn't be able to walk. We shouldn't be able to walk as well, And saddle anesthesia, I've still got that. I still have that.
So I do. It's very mild, and there has been improvement, but it's definitely still there.
Yeah, and it's to the point where I don't actually notice it because I've become so used to putting up with it, you know what I mean? So yeah, but that's a lot you took on in August of 2020.
It was a lot that I took on, a lot. And then unexpectedly, I actually found out I was pregnant with my son at the end of October.
Oh, wow. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
So,
Yes, you are dealing with a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I was like, whoa, I just started working on myself.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I'm so glad I did.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer, everything happens for a reason. Everything happens just the way that it's supposed to. So when I found out I was pregnant for him, that was even more reason for me to just keep pushing, just keep working on myself.
Yeah.
Keep going. One thing that I do think, I had a harder time with was, I wish I had longer of the sobriety before it was just forced, because of course I wasn't going to drink while I was pregnant, so that was just like a give me, like, I wish I would have had more time to really kind of master the sobriety, because then, I was thinking, after my son was born, like, oh, okay, now I can have, like 1 or 2 drinks again and I'll be okay. So I had tried that and I realized, but it's okay, because I realized I have no stop button. So I just can't be a drinker. So I'm perfectly fine just not drinking and just being done with it forever. Some people can have 1 or 2 drinks and stop. I can't do that. And I'm okay knowing I can't do that. And I just avoid it now, so it ended up working out. But I do wish I had more time to have really focused on that, before having him. But, it all worked out anyway. And then I feel like I kind of fell off with my, my self-help journey, my transformation, because then I was focused on, being pregnant is a lot of work. You're growing a whole entire person. And so then I have him. Oh my gosh. I mean, he brightened my whole entire world.
Beautiful.
Oh gosh. I love being a mom. And so I was like, I was really excited, but I'm like, this is it. We're just gonna have the one. Well, then he arrived and I was like, this is the best thing ever. I was like, we have to have another one. Like, being a mom is awesome. So we wanted them to be about 2 years apart. So then I had my daughter she just had her first birthday. So I had her in May 2023. So they're almost right at 2 years apart. But once again, being pregnant, I feel like I kind of fell off my self-help journey, like, because I'm so focused on my kids.
Sure. Yeah.
So just recently, in the last couple of months, now it's like I'm back in the routine of things. Things are, I've been working out, feeling great. Work's going great. I've got the routine with my babies. My son's almost 3. He'll be 3 in June, and my daughter just turned 1. And so these last 2 months, it's been like full speed ahead, like back on, focusing on myself. Well, of course, focusing on them too. But, it's like, self-help books, positive podcasts, just feeding my brain with as much information and positivity as I can, walking, exercising, meditation, like I'm getting all that back. And I feel just like this renewed, like, excitement about mindset and about, working on myself just so I can be the best for them.
Yeah, look, we are so similar in that regard in terms of what Cauda Equina has done for us, because, like I said, my self-care pre-Cauda Equina was pretty poor.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be fair. Yeah, but since then I've taken on, I do a lot of breath work, a lot of cold therapy, a lot of ice baths, a lot of reading as well, positive podcasting, all the things that you just mentioned. And physically as well, I'm training a lot smarter than I was before, and I feel so much better for it. I really do. And I've gone, because I suffered that, I wouldn't say I suffered, but I went through that victim mindset for a long time. I carried that for a long time. And like I said, I shook it when I started seeing these little incremental improvements from my physiotherapist. And it was a slow piece by piece kind of improvement, but I grabbed it. And that's what I encourage people to do, is just to take those little micro steps, because cumulatively, they just add up to something big without you even, because if you try and you took on a lot, but if people get overwhelmed by the thought of, self-improvement or changing their mindset, do it piecemeal, do it bit by bit, because it can be overwhelming, because you're just thinking, okay, I've got to make all these wholesale changes to my life. I don't know if I can handle that, because I've got this pain with Cauda Equina, I've got things going on in my life, I've got a job that I hate, or whatever the case may be. Just taking on another project, I guess, like self-improvement, just may seem like too much. You can break that down if you do it piece by piece.
Exactly. And it's just, I think a lot of people don't know where to start, but you can just start anywhere. Just start
exactly
wherever you want. Before Cauda Equina and before, I had started focusing on myself, before kind of my downward spirals I told you about, I had never meditated in my life. I didn't know how, but I started looking it up. I started, YouTubing it and looking things up. And I started doing a lot of things that I had never done in my life.
I'd never meditated. I couldn't get my mind. I couldn't get my mind still enough. But then I did a guided meditation it was one of Joe Dispenza's meditations.
Yeah.
I just did that. I got into Spotify, and then let Joe guide me through it, and I got hooked. Absolutely hooked. Just the sense of empowerment I get from it. There's so much power in stillness.
There really is.
Yeah.
There really is. And it's just, when I get done, I have a meditation closet that I created for myself. I mean, it's a really tiny closet, very small, but it's a space and it's just mine, and I'll go in there. And the way I feel just like rejuvenated and refreshed when I come out of there from doing absolutely nothing but just being still.
Yeah, exactly. And a friend of mine with his breath work suggested it. I'm like, I don't know about this. What's a bit of breathing going to do? Like I breathe all the time. So I can't see any benefit at all. And I went to one session and gosh, it was incredible. Absolutely incredible. The one thing I haven't tried that I want to try is sound healing.
I haven't done that either.
Yeah, but I've heard it's phenomenal. So it's definitely something that I want to try. I mean, sound healing is more, it's for anything really, but mainly if you're storing some trauma still, even though you've dealt with it psychologically and you're still storing some trauma in your body, it's a really good way to deal with it, which I did. I still had some trauma, not from Cauda Equina, from my previous career. So my previous career, I'm a former federal agent with the Australian Federal Police. I left in 2017. So I was in the counter-terrorism space, so I had a lot of trauma from all the stuff that I was exposed to in that field.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, and then getting through that was brutal. I went through a process called EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing. And it's a brutal process because, so mine was complex, which means multiple triggers from multiple events. So I had to revisit each of those triggers or each of those events, and then revisit and frame by frame by frame. It's like exposure therapy, like exposing yourself to your fears and confronting it head on. But they do it very well. Like they have safety nets in place because you're stirring up all old emotions and things like that. So the psychological process had been done, and I recovered from that, but I was still storing some of that trauma in my body. Incidentally, a lot of trauma is stored in the lower back as well. So when you said that you didn't really have any lower back pain, the same applies to me. I had tightness in the lower back, and I thought that was just from training. I thought that was just, and all the years of doing a contact sport. But when he explained where we store our trauma in the jaw and all that kind of stuff, all made sense because I had all the symptoms. Then I went to the sound healing, and I've heard about the sound healing. So yeah, that's something I definitely want to take on.
I do too. I'm really going to look more into that. I've heard of it, but yeah, that's something. Yeah, I want to look into that now that you bring it up.
You brought out a really interesting point as well. So you made the decision to go sober, but then all these emotions came up. The emotions that you were trying to mask with alcohol, they then surfaced. So it is a very confronting process. But what's that phrase that you've got to feel it to heal it?
Yeah.
So you gotta do the work.
You have to. I mean, and it's not going to go away on its own. And you can mask it if you want, but it's still going to be there. And it's like, I had to, when I stopped all the drinking and partying and really got to know myself and focus on myself, I'm like, I don't even I didn't know who I was before. Yeah. And now I feel like I know myself and I have a new sense of confidence, because I feel very comfortable with who I am. And it took a lot of work to get there, a lot of work. So, that was it's still an ongoing process. But
of course, yeah.
I completely relearned myself once I had, in August 2020, when I had made that decision, I had to completely relearn who I am.
So that process, and then pregnancy and giving birth and, having a newborn, you've gone a step further and got some education in mindset coaching.
Yeah.
So
that was something, I was like, I had almost become like, that was my new alcohol, my new passion, it was my passion, my favorite thing to do, my pastime was to focus on my mindset and to strengthen my own mindset. really just work on myself. I mean, I became like really almost obsessed with it, but in a good way, but it was what I wanted to do all the time was just work on myself and focus on myself and teach myself how to just really be at peace. I wanted that peace so bad. And I finally, it's taken time, but I finally have found it. I used to be huge, like stressor and worrier. And I finally got to the point, like, what's going to happen is going to happen. There are so many things that are out of our control. Do what you can do, let the rest go.
Absolutely. I was the world's biggest overthinker. I used to overthink.
Yeah, totally. Me here.
Everything. So now I've got that same mindset that you just said. I'll deal with what's in front of me, what I can control, and the rest will take care of itself.
Yeah, that was a huge thing for me, It helped me get that peace that I was searching for. But so anyway, so I wanted to take it a step further, and I took these really, they were the best, these mindset courses, and it was through the Mindset Coaching Academy. Laura Young, she's phenomenal, and she's actually in Australia as well. I took her courses, and it was an 8-month course. It was Monday and Wednesday evening my time, and most of the other people in the cohort, they were in the US too, just because of the way the time fell. And it was amazing. And everything else, though, I was just teaching myself. I didn't have anybody guiding me, it was just me Googling and reading and researching and figuring out different things and trying different things. And she really taught us technique. And so I was able to apply these techniques that I was learning. I was learning these things so I could, help other people. But for me, that was what it was designed for. But for me, I wanted to learn these things so I could, use these techniques on myself, like master my mindset. And during the process of, this 8-month course, I found out, I started seeing signs that my son was autistic. And so this is like a whole nother thing. That for me was like, I had no idea what to do. I was scared. I was, this is like, he's like my whole world. And I was so scared.
Yeah.
And I had to gather myself together. And then I remember one day I started crying, and I was telling my husband, I was like, I really think he's autistic. And I was just scared, and I was completely uneducated at this point. But he was so young. He was only, I started seeing signs at 9 months, but he was between 13 and 14 months when I started telling my husband this. And he was like, sitting here crying is not going to do anything to help the situation. Let's get up and go do something about it. So I started doing all this research, and I was like full-fledged ahead. And in Texas, they don't diagnose until 18 months. So I started making appointments and making phone calls and getting set up. And so by the time it was time to even get the diagnosis, I was already pretty positive he was autistic at this point. I was completely over the fear and the worry, and I had taken control of that, and I was ready to take action. And so he did receive his diagnosis, and we were able to get him in the speech therapy and the occupational therapy and the behavior therapy. And he's in this little school, for autistic children, where he loves it. He just thrives, and he is, took off. And I think a huge part of that is by getting my mind right, taking the action, and getting him the help that he needs, because a lot of people are in denial.
Absolutely. And that denial can go for, it certainly did for me with my post-traumatic stress disorder. I denied it for a long time, and then I started withdrawing, and I went through the whole process, and then the overthinking and catastrophizing, and that's what we tend to do. Your husband that approach was spot on, like sitting here and crying about it.
I needed to hear that.
That's
too.
good. That's going to go get us nowhere. So let's take the horse by the reins and ride it. So.
And he said that to me, and I was like, okay.
Exactly.
Right.
Because, and that would have been me in the past as well. I would have stewed over it and sunk back into that victim mentality, I think, without solving anything. But once you start taking the steps, then things fall into place. Like you said, he's a happy kid now, with
he is the coolest, happiest kid, and he's just thriving. And if I hadn't done all of the work that I had done, I wouldn't have been in the place, the right place to give him the help and the support and be, the best mom to him that I can be.
Absolutely.
And so it's like I said, everything happens for a reason. And I think I started all this work, a long time ago. So I was ready for it. When that was thrown my way, it took me a little bit of, the victims that, like you said, and sitting there like, why are these things happening to me? Like, why my son? And then I'm like, what? Like, you have a very physically healthy son who is, happy and safe and, thriving. Just go and handle it, get him the help that he needs, and be the best mom that you can be. And like from that point forward, the day my husband told me that, I never looked back. And I don't stress, I don't worry. Like he is in good hands, and he's going to get all the, everything that he needs.
Perfect. So with your coaching, so you're going to take that locally to start with, or in Dallas, or in Texas in general,
Yeah.
and then across the US.
Probably US based. So this is all very new because I've just, like I told you, I've been pregnant or had an infant for the last 4 years pretty much.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I'm working, I work full time as well. So I just got my website up just in the last couple of months. So I'm ready to kind of launch things and start. I've done practice hours. I have like 100 hours of practice coaching, but I'm just to the point where I'm really ready to start taking on clients. And I something I'm so passionate about because I see the work that I've done for myself. And I went from somebody who really wasn't happy and I wasn't living a full fulfilled life. I mean, my life was just like, it was just kind of day to day, just like blah, 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 going by and getting by. And now it's like my life is so full in just the best way possible. I really feel joy. I feel a peace that I never thought was possible, especially with a mind like mine, where I'm constantly, like you said, overthinking everything, worrying about everything. And if I wasn't worrying or overthinking things, then I was just drinking so I didn't have to think about it, and stuff. It's gotten myself to such a great place where I feel really good, and I want to be able to help other people get there too. No matter what it is they're dealing with, whatever it is that might be holding them back or kind of blocking them from living this life that's out there.
Because it's a beautiful life. We sabotage it.
Yeah.
You get one, and I don't know. We're our own worst enemies. We really sabotage a really good thing. Like bad things happen, and things happen. Life happens, but it's an old cliche that I hate to regurgitate, but it's how we deal with those bits of adversity, like it's a beautiful life out there. It really is. And it starts from the inside, life is how we perceive it, not the other way around. Like life, it doesn't happen to us, so we happen to it.
It totally is. And I got really big into, like the law of attraction and manifestation. And I really believe like when you're having positive things and you're putting positivity out there, it's going to come back to you, and it's just like, whereas if you're sitting there always having negative thoughts and feeding off negativity, I mean, you attract negative things. And I really, really do believe in that.
You really do. And when you get into that, let's say a space of negative energy, you can feel yourself contract. You really can feel your energy contract. You can feel the toxicity. Whereas before, when you're so used to it, it's just run of the mill. You don't realize how much energy, how much negativity you attract or find. But once you find that positivity, you can sense when you walk into a vibration that doesn't match yours.
Yes. I've become so aware of the shift of why I'm like, wait, why am I feeling like this? Oh, because I'm sitting here having negative thoughts. Okay, well, let's shift it back because I don't like feeling like this.
Exactly.
And you control it. And
exactly.
that's once I learned that, I'm like, you don't have to have a bad day.
Exactly, because you're in the driver's seat, so.
And okay, maybe it started off a little rough, maybe you split your coffee and you were late and okay, well, let's turn it around and have it, make it smooth the rest of the day. It doesn't just have to keep going worse.
Exactly, because we do that as humans. We just catastrophize everything. We just amplify what we shouldn't. I was going to say something before as well about when I was talking about my denial with post-traumatic stress and all of the emotions that I went through with that. When I was diagnosed, I actually, like Cauda Equina, I didn't know what to do with it because I didn't know anything about PTSD. So the process to get through that was brutal, but taking that first step for me took a long time because I was scared. Fear was it was a major barrier for me. But like I said before, once I took that first tiny little step, I had to take it a few times because I kept wanting to relapse. You dip your toe in the water and keep pulling it out, and so that's what I did. Actually, that reminds me of a really good quote by, I think it's Hamosi, and he said, "Fear is a mile wide and an inch deep," which perfectly resonates with me because this vast expanse of fear that stopped me dead in my tracks. But once I dipped my toe in, I was like, okay, this is really shallow. I've got this. So, and I went with it. So overcoming that, or reframing that sense of fear was a big step forward. And, it'll take a bit of work to go through all the processes. It has to be multifaceted processes. Like you said, with your recovery, you did the bike riding, you did the meditation, you did all these kind of things, and they work coherently, they work alongside each other. So don't expect just going to see a therapist or doing just the one thing is going to drag you out of where you are. So, yeah, it'll help, but you need to do all these other things as well. And it's not as overwhelming as you might think it would be, because it all just falls into place. You do one, and then you just want to do the other.
Start coming to you. Yeah.
Exactly, because you just like you said, you just attract the right stuff. It's a really empowering process. It started off from a really bad place, but where we are now.
Yeah, I never thought that I would be any part thankful for Cauda Equina, you know what I mean? But it's like, maybe it was necessary for me, because I don't know if I'd be, where I'm at now if I wouldn't have had to go through that dark place, and my downward spiral, as I call it.
Yeah, and I think I would have been the same. It's done a lot for me. It really has.
Yeah. It's made me really appreciate my body. And it's like how we were talking about, you only get one life, you only get one body. Like, take care of yourself.
During summer, I went to the beach a few times, and just to be able to feel the sand on my feet, I'm like, wow. You get to appreciate these types of things.
Yeah.
Because walking when you can't feel your feet, oh my gosh, that was heartbreaking, actually.
Yeah, it's just something you take for granted because you think it's always going to be there.
Exactly. When I was fresh out of the hospital and I would go to a coffee shop or whatever and just see people walking on the sidewalk, I'm like, geez, how lucky are these people to be able to walk freely?
Yeah.
Like, how good for them.
That's how I was when I would see people wearing high heels, seeing women wearing high heels. I can't wear heels anymore, which I don't care. I wear tennis shoes and flats, that's fine, whatever.
Yeah.
But I would be like, looking at people wearing these high heels, and I'm like, oh, it must be nice,
Yeah. Gosh, but what a journey you've had. And honestly, it's not quite 5 years yet, but you've had so much happen in that time.
Yeah, I have had a lot happen in that time.
Yeah.
And it took me, it took me about a year. It took me almost a year of feeling sorry for myself and, not really doing a whole lot to help myself. And then I was just tired of it. I was just tired of feeling bad. I was tired of the negativity. I was tired of, playing the victim, and poor me. And it's just, I wanted more. And I just decided one day to go get it, I guess.
I'm so mindful of time because it's getting really late for you over there.
It is, and I appreciate it. It's been so good talking to you.
Gosh, it's like speaking to somebody from my own fraternity with CES.
No, absolutely, because it's like we had talked about, other people just don't get it. It's very hard to explain, until you've really actually experienced it and felt it and lived through it.
Yeah, but I really, really appreciate your time and sharing everything you shared. Thank you so, so much.
Absolutely, and so good talking to you.
Likewise.
I'll have a good evening. You have a good morning.
Will do.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
See you, Kathryn.